So, thanks everyone. I hope you're all not fed up with hearing about ChatGPT. If not, you've got a little bit more to hear about it. I just want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. So I work in JISC. About a year and a half ago, we started a project called National Centre for AI in Tertiary Education. And at the time, we thought our goal was to accelerate the adoption of AI in a responsible way, still responsible. Acceleration isn't always within our control, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks. So a few bits I want to cover today. So I'm just going to give a really quick intro, but I'm assuming most people here have used ChatGPT now, or at least heard about it. So I'm not going to cover that much. And I just want to look at three things that are hot topics at the moment and explore them. So I want to talk a little bit about student essays and just perhaps look back over the last couple of years to see what we can learn. A little bit about AI detection and a little bit about exams and GPT passing them or not and what we might learn from that. And then a little bit about what we're doing next. So probably doesn't need much introduction. The fascinating thing for me is how this is broken out of academia talk to hit the press, and we've seen in mainstream newspapers all sorts of things about GPT passing exams, students cheating and things like that. I think it's quite interesting though to start and reflect on what OpenAI say about their products. This is from an educator's guide. And I'm just going to run through some of the points that it pulls out. And I think this will help us kind of understand the situation we're in at the moment. So they say it may produce content that perpetuates bias. It generates inaccurate information. It shouldn't be trusted as an assessment tool. It doesn't perform well on complex problems or in science or humanities. That covers the whole lot pretty much. That verifying recommendations requires a high degree of expertise and it's not a substitute for learning. Okay, so a massive disclaimer there behind. But what we see when we use it, ignoring the little bits that people don't read, is something quite different. So if I say, help me with my essay, it doesn't say any of that stuff. It says, sure, let's crack on with it. I'm going to help you. And I think that's probably partly behind some of the confusion and discussion we're having at the moment. So I want to start by thinking about the essays and actually going back a couple of years. And I think perhaps if we explore this, we can understand a little bit about perhaps what's actually happening. So the first hype wave of this, if anyone can remember, actually happened in 2020. So this is when GPT-3 itself was first released and newspaper articles started to appear. Look, robots are writing our essays. Isn't that scary? There was a little bit of kind of untruths in what was happening there, but it was there and out in the open. And what happened was OpenAI didn't actually release any tools themselves. They made GPT available to developers to create their own tools. And these have been available to students for the last 2 years, really, or perhaps even more than that. And maybe a little bit under the radar, but perhaps we can learn from that. So this was from something we were looking at about, well, you can see it's last summer, a tool, 10 apps that write your essays for you and boost your grade. So this has been out there for a while. Not just this one, this was Jasper, but there were loads of them that we could see targeting students. And if you delve down into the kind of things they were pushing at the students, I've turned in so many assignments using Moonbeam, gets me A's with no plagiarism. The AI does a great job, etc., etc. So this problem situation we find ourselves didn't start in November. It's probably when a lot of us become aware of it, but it's actually been happening for quite a while. Another class of applications appeared at the same time. These were kind of quite explicitly cheat tools aimed at students, search and paraphrase tools. So tools that let us just cherry pick bits off the internet, rephrase them and put them together into a semi-coherent essay, similar to the kind of thing you get with ChatGPT. And we didn't actually see a tsunami of AI-generated student work, or maybe we did, but if we did, there wasn't main chat about it. And I think it's probably worth us reflecting on why not. And I haven't seen a huge amount of research on this, but you can hypothesize that maybe that students were aware of this and just think it wasn't that helpful. They wanted to do the right thing. Maybe the thing that's changed is that now everyone is aware of it, and perhaps they would have been using it all along. Don't know, but I think that it kind of shows the need to have a discussion with students and find out what's really going on. I just want to look at what happened in parallel, though, with the rest of the world, if you like, on this. So outside of education, these tools were actually marketed at professional writers. So people writing product descriptions, blogs, all of that kind of thing. And they gradually become kind of mainstream tools. We had an interesting thing happen where Google, there was belief that they were actually blocking this content, called it spam, didn't want AI content on the internet. And they introduced blocking technology. Whether this is true or not, I'm not 100% sure. But what did happen was that tools emerged to help writers find out whether their text looked like it was written by AI. And this has got a lot of parallels with the discussion we're starting to have around AI detection. So as soon as there was detection in place, people started to think about how to defeat that. So that's the next area that I want to touch upon. So saying here, AI detection won't save us. And this was kind of a statement from our last webinar before Christmas. A war between AI, plagiarism detection, generative AI won't help anyone. Tools started to appear. So GPT-0 got a lot of press earlier in the year. It was actually created by a student over Christmas, hit all the press. Humans deserve the truth. And it looked like it would detect AI without a problem. That's not really the case. OpenAI released their own tool a couple of weeks ago. If you just look at it, there's no real disclaimer. If you look behind the scenes at what they say, it's incredibly inaccurate. I just want to demonstrate part of the problem with that, so that's okay. And I'm going to do this via a little video rather than do it live. So I'm just going to do this. This is with the OpenAI one. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to create a bit of text and feed it into it. So here we go. I'm asking it to write 250 words. Because it needs that many to actually work. Off it goes. Okay, there we go. I sped it up because it doesn't really work that quickly, as any of you who used it will know. Drop it in, submit it, and yeah, it's spotted it's AI, it's likely written by AI. That's cool. Right. So I'm going to pause for a second. The thing is that for us to trust these systems, they have to explain how they work. So the GPT-0 looks for particular patterns in the text. The OpenAI one works by being trained on sets of text that were written by AI and those that weren't. Trouble is, as soon as you know how it works, you can think about how to defeat them. So we had to think, okay, how do we make our text look less like it was written by AI? We simply just put in a prompt to say, use the word the less. It's the most common word in the English language, and it just changed how it writes. So watch what happens when we do this. I'm asking it to vary paragraph lengths as well on this example, just to refine it. It's writing me exactly the same content, but with the less. Put that in. And there we go. It's unlikely to be written by AI. This works with ChatGPT, with the other detector as well. So it took us about 5 minutes once we read about how these work to figure out how to defeat them. Sure, they'll probably be fixed. Next time they come in, it isn't just going to be our team looking at it. It's going to be loads of students sharing this. We're just going to get in a war that we can't defeat. And it was fascinating. The last GPT-0 defeat went viral on TikTok. So students were sharing their how to defeat it. My hack still works on the new version. So QA have given guidance that they say these tools we shouldn't rely on them. There's some evidence that you can evade their detection. Hopefully I've shown you, yeah, you definitely can evade their detection. So relying on them isn't a great strategy. Okay, I just want to move on then from detectors and just look at the third thing that's coming up an awful lot. And this is GPT Past. It's insert your exam here. So you've probably all seen these. Passed a law exam, a business school exam, an MBA, professional exams, all kind of things. And one of the interesting things for us is that quite often these are shared with the examples of the papers that the AI did. And it's quite interesting what happens when you try and replicate these. So I'm going to pick one of the MBA ones here, and again, I'm going to show you a video of it. So I've just picked the second question on it. It worked with most of them. And I'm just going to show you a couple of videos in parallel. So here's one of them, and here's the other. So basically, I'm just replicating exactly what happened in the paper. Bear with me, like arrange my screens here. So literally just pasting the answer in and off it goes. Now to do this, I did it a few hours apart, and sometimes you need to get other people to do it because it kind of stores your previous details. But there it goes, it's cracked off. You don't need to read the detail of what it's doing. There we go. Okay. And I've got two completely different answers. So one of them's claiming the answer to this, how much inventory do I need, is well over 1 million. Completely wrong. The other is actually gets it right, 500,000. And the logic on the one that it's got wrong is bizarre. I can't really figure out what it's trying to even do there. So I think the reason why I want to show that is there's been a lot of concern, rightly, about the AI being able to answer exam questions. But I think we've got also a problem about it getting them wrong and people using these to actually as a learning tool. Just want to delve into a little bit about why it's doing this. And it might be everyone's kind of grasped this at the moment, but it's not reading the question, understanding it and trying to solve it. It's really just trying to predict the next plausible word in the sentence. And it's got no concept of what it's saying, is whether it's true or not. If you want to explore this, what I'd recommend is having a chat with it about a topic that you know a lot about, but is relatively obscure. So here's a chat about the village I live in, which allegedly King Arthur had his round table in. It started completely making up this stone sculpture that is located in the town centre. We've actually got an amphitheatre. There's like something there. It's just not that. So you can start getting these untruths yourself. I want to just try something. So I've been trying to work out a good way of explaining this to colleagues. And this is one I tried on a couple of colleagues last week, and I'm going to try it now. And we're just going to delve behind the scenes. So this is the playground bit that developers typically use. And I'm just going to put in a sentence here. And what I'm going to do is just ask it to show the probabilities. I'm going to run that. And off it goes. And it's color coding the text to see the probability of each word. And I can hover over it and see that it's literally just predicting what word next. We can see the different values that it might have chosen. We can scroll through. We'll see sometimes variance on this. Let's see, it's always on this example, pick the highest rated ones. Yeah, you can see here that it's chosen a word slightly lower down. We can control this. So we can change, you can see that it could easily get off track and start going producing complete nonsense. So hopefully that kind of makes it clearer that it really is just predicting words rather than actually trying to understand what it's actually trying to do. Okay, and to me, one of the biggest challenges we've got in education is not that it is going to solve problems for students, but it's the misinformation that it's likely to give for people that use it as a learning aid. So I'm in that MBA one, I might well have been using it to try and understand how to solve the problem. I've got a complete load of kind of nonsense there. And this feels like a really new challenge. I know we've had unreliable sources like Wikipedia before, but to me, this feels much more like if calculators have sometimes got the question wrong. And I don't know how well equipped we are to deal with that. So whistle stop tour through three of the things that we've been looking at particularly interesting. I just want to talk about what's happening next in terms of like outside of education. So first of all, it's getting integrated into our everyday tools, and keeping up on the announcements on this is really, really hard. So I thought I'd put the most recent announcement about it being integrated into Teams yesterday. Last week, there was another announcement about Bing last night, but it's going to do what on the face looks really useful to us. Summarize meeting notes, actions and things automatically, something that looks genuinely useful as a time-saving device. We're seeing tools that merge GPT-3 with search. So don't know if many of you have seen this. This is Perplexity. Bing looks like it's going in a very similar direction. I can ask it something. So I'm going to ask it to tell me about JISC. And it will go away and produce something that looks a little bit like the sort of thing that, if it works, yeah, there we go. So it looks like it's working like ChatGPT, but with references in. So interesting evolution of it, moving away from something that is completely unverifiable to something that's quite similar. But we can actually start verifying the courses, the information in it. So interesting direction there. Bing, from the announcement last night, looks like it's going very much in that direction, all based on OpenAI approach called Webb GPT. And the other thing is that I started saying that 2 years ago or so that it was open up to developers to build their own products. The waiting list for ChatGPT is now open, so loads more use is going to start emerging, and it's going to come thick and fast. So there's a lot there that we're going to have to keep on top of. So from our perspective, what next? It's not going to go away. It's going to accelerate a lot more. I kind of put a load of negative stuff. I started off with the things that it does badly and showed it getting things wrong. I do genuinely think we're going to find lots of great use cases too. There's lots of things it's good at, just not facts. From a GIST perspective, we're getting together a group of interested people to help us work out what we can do that would be useful for the next stage. So, bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I hope that was useful or interesting. Those are the things that I wanted to cover. Don't know if we want to, got a couple of minutes left, if we want to have any questions or discussion.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was absolutely fantastic. We have had some questions. I've got a couple of questions that some colleagues have sent me. So what I'll do is if I ask those first,
yeah,
and then if we have time, we can kind of open up the floor to some other questions. We've got 10 minutes to answer some questions on this section at the moment. So if we go through a couple of them and see how we get on, basically. What I will just say quickly is if any of your colleagues are struggling to get into the session today, we have maxed out the attendee limit today. So please just ask them to keep trying. We are recording the session and we will circulate it to everyone afterwards. So apologies for any frustration that's causing, but yeah, that's why. Okay, so the first question I have here from Mike Ewan. Have people looked at the ethics into using detection tools? Should we be getting student permission? And he said from me, yes. What happens to the submitted materials? From what I read, the individual retains copyright, but haven't been able to get a clear picture.
So I'm going to start with the legal side really rather than the ethics. At the moment, the tools that are out there, from a straightforward legal perspective, I wouldn't recommend using, because your institution will have no legal contract with them or anything. You really don't know what's happening with the data. If you do want to use them in an institution, I think that it really needs to be adopted like your institutional tools. We really don't know what's happening with the stuff that we're pasting in at the moment. They all claim that it won't be used for odd purposes, but I would steer clear of putting student work into any of them at the moment, personally.
Okay, great stuff, thank you. Steve, do we have any other questions? I think we've lost Steve there. I'll tell you what, if you do have a question, if you could raise your hand, and we'll operate on a first come, first serve basis, and we'll give you the permission. I can see we've got a few hands raised here. So what I'll do is Tristan Coombe, if you'd still like to ask your question, I can unmute you. So you should be able to now unmute yourself. No, it looks like we've lost Tristan there. We've got Lynn. Lynn, I can unmute your mic, so you should be able to unmute yourself now. Okay, looks like we've lost him as well. Sally, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Hi.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. My main question at the moment is, are there any working groups out there that are either looking at sort of, this is the policy of the university, because as a tutor and a marker, I'm worried about our policy. We don't have one. And secondly, much more interesting, how can we both use this in our teaching and help our students using it in their learning? Because I'm sort of feeling a little bit alone in a relatively small university, and I'd like to know who else is working on this. And all I can find is the amazing Reddit discussions that talk about dubious use of the tool. Thank you.
So from a GIST perspective, shameless plug to join our mailing list, where we, which I'll just share the screen. Bear with me. So from our website there, you can find the details on how you do that. So we're creating a working group. We've put a call out already for people that want to work with us on it. And out of that, I suspect there'll be a couple, both areas actually will probably end up looking. So one's the policy side and the other's the how to use it. So chance to join in with our work there. There's also, we've seen quite a lot of good work in individual institutions, which from our mailing list, we will be sharing stuff that looks useful regularly. So plug is to join our mailing list on that one.
Thank you. And just to add to that, Lynn, we are running a Padlet today, so we're hoping that we can use that as another resource that people can tap into going forward. So we're hoping that the more kind of examples of teaching that people are doing, institutions will start to post on what they're planning to do on there as well. And we can also use the webinar community as a kind of a form of trying to help people that do feel like they're alone, because I know you're not alone in that respect, that like there are so many different people that are in exactly the same boat. And that's exactly why we started these series, so people have a platform to do that. There's no reason why we couldn't put on another event like this in the future, kind of where people are sharing practice on specific examples that they've done. So I hope that's useful. Okay, we do have time for another question. The chat is going absolutely crazy. I can't actually follow it. It's going so fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the hands that are up, if that's okay. Joseph, you have your hand up. I'm going to allow you to unmute your mic if you'd like to ask a question.
Very much for the opportunity. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, thank you.
All right, yeah. So I'm from BPP University. We train chartered accountants, and I'm looking at how this chat GPT could influence students when it comes to learning concerning preparation of accounts, in line with maybe as part of their training, they need to learn how to prepare accounts. They need to learn how to do tax computations. Is it possible that this tool could be used as a cheat mechanism? Thank you.
So yes, but I think this is partly falls into the category of the one that I showed you, how it gets maths questions quite badly wrong, quite erratically. So I'm sure there are use cases there, but I think that for each discipline, you kind of need to explore what its strengths and weaknesses in your particular use case. We did a little bit of work looking at how it was used, or not chat GPT, but GPT itself was being used, for example, in law in practice, and how that might be used for students. So I think my message really is kind of explore it more, understand what it is like with the kind of things that you ask, and take it from there. You might find that it's not the right tool at the moment with something highly mathematical.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And I've just spotted a question in the chat. Yes, please feel free to share the Padlet with anyone outside of this call as well. We are going to share it with the whole community, and we have just under 7,000 people on there. So that's the whole point of this, is to try and build this resource. So yes, please absolutely share that outside of this. Okay, I think we're going to call it time for today's session. Thank you so much, Michael. There are some questions in the chat. We will try to get to all of your questions, and if we can't get to them in today's session, we will we'll send them to Michael. And we can work out how we'll get back to you, but we will answer your question in one way or another. But thank you so much, and thank you, Michael. What a great start to the webinar.
Thank you, everyone.